As a reporter in my first life, I covered legislative sessions from time to time, Wyoming, Arizona, California, Colorado. So with only a few weeks to go in the Colorado General Assembly, we decided to talk today about the status of several progressive pieces of legislation. Our guest, our subject matter expert of the day, is the organizer of the Jeffco chapter of the grassroots community organizing group, Together Colorado. We are always glad to talk to Mackie Samasat from Together Colorado because she's involved in so many aspects of faithful resistance. And today we're going to focus on legislation in the state of Colorado because there are several bills that Together Colorado has been watching. Thanks for coming, Mackie. And could you just give me a kind of a broad brush of what you're watching in the legislature, and then we'll dig into 3 or 4 separate bills.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Always happy to be with you all. So we support a human dignity agenda as always, and this legislative season we are focusing on a climate justice bill, affordable housing, and immigration justice, which are our top 3 priorities this year. And what we're really looking to push for this year is not just sort of siloing these issues, in their categories, but actually bringing them together under a human dignity, human justice agenda, so that we're actually looking at all these issues as as something that we should all be throwing down on together, and not sort of like in our little groups, in our categories. Like, we're stronger together.
Mm-hmm. It makes me wonder who the we is in we are focusing on that. And I know Together Colorado, but tell us a little bit about the organization for those who are new to it.
Yeah, so Together Colorado is a statewide, multi-faith organization of over 200 congregations, faith-based institutions, and mobile home parks. And we have been organizing really since the 80s for human dignity issues. And in recent years, we have been we've been getting back to our roots of grassroots organizing in our neighborhoods and our regions. So I was very blessed and grateful to be part of this effort when I joined Together Colorado 2 years ago, helping build the Jeffco chapter, which has now grown to over 10 congregations throughout Jefferson County. We're working on getting more. And Jefferson Unitarian has been a core member of our chapter from the very beginning, even before we had a chapter. So so it's very exciting that we're really focusing on our grassroots organizing and building a bigger we, not just across Jefferson County, but also across the state of Colorado, while still being rooted in our communities.
And when you say we working at the legislature, that means Together Colorado, but are there individual participants from congregations, or is it mostly you and other people at Together in Colorado?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. So we actually had our biggest lobby day this year. We had over 200 folks across the state. And in fact, we were such a large group that when we arrived at the Capitol, we ended up having to be moved into a room on the second floor, which could actually hold all of us, a room that's typically not reserved for the public. And so we filled that room. There was, standing room only. And yeah, it was folks from Denver, Boulder, Jeffco, Colorado Springs, Northern Colorado. We also had folks from the mountains who came, Pueblo, and some growing communities in Douglas County and Highlands Ranch and Arapahoe County. So just, growing statewide.
Wow. 200.
Yeah.
That's awesome to go to a lobby day. And I'm hoping some of them will continue to follow up. But okay, let's switch to what the bills are. You want to start with climate change?
Yeah. So our main bill this year was what we called the FAIR bill, and it's SB 002, and essentially It compels, or it's trying to compel, corporations like Excel and BlackRock um, to offer low-income households a baseline amount of cheaper electricity for basic needs, and the state has to approve how they do it. Now, because there's been just some sort of negotiations at the state levels with some unions and other sort of interested stakeholders, we've had to negotiate for a more sort of pragmatic version of the bill at this point. But I think what it has helped us learn as Together Colorado and our folks are involved is that, one, we have to be building a lot more power around the issue of climate justice and affordability um, in our work. And then two, we also have to consider that we have all these different power organizations involved in the equation too. So our
So
union, yeah,
unions, corporations, government, and do you feel
and
like your
us.
voice is anywhere equal to those other players?
So I think we're figuring it out. We in organizing, we say power is organized people and organized money. And some of those entities have, more than one or the other. And, Together Colorado, we have a strongly organized, growing base of people in our congregations and in our communities. So, we're working to build that so that yeah, we can be even more of a power player at the state house. But it was a good lesson learned for us because we're always trying to build more power. But what I will say is that the bill has passed the third reading. It's moving along the process. And even in its sort of more pragmatic state, we're confident that it's still going to push the narrative as far as, okay, these big companies, it's not just like a nice to have to care for low income households. Like this is actually a potential policy. This is a good policy solution that we can all work towards, is pushing the envelope and changing
So,
the
so it
Congress.
looks like it's going to pass the Senate and House. Any thoughts
Yes.
on possibilities
Yeah, it's
there?
in the House right now. Yeah.
Oh, it is.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
It's yeah. So it's moving along the process.
And Polis would be on board for this, the governor.
We're hoping, yeah, at least in this negotiated version. I think, we see him more as a pragmatic, pragmatic individual. So, yeah, we're hoping that it will be passed.
I know that mobile home issues and for affordable housing have been high on the list of Together Colorado. How's this mobile home bill going that allows some protections for mobile home park residents?
Yeah, so that's actually also moving along the process. Now it's on the House side as well. It has a good chance of passing, I'm told, by some attorneys that we're working with and some mobile home residents that we're working with. It's a long overdue bill. Mobile home residents have been core to affordable housing and being able to provide that option for low income folks in the state of Colorado. So just very exciting that they're going to be able to advocate for their own rights. And if there is a corporate sale of their park, that they would be duly notified and have enough time to be able to organize themselves and be able to purchase the park, as most of them want to, so they can, decide their own futures and make sure that they're not sort of in the hands of a corporation.
Because there certainly have been instances where the owners have swooped in and said, "Oh, yep, we're selling it, and
Yeah.
there's no time for you to do anything. Good luck."
Yeah, exactly. And at outrageous prices as well. For example, this morning I was just talking to Mountainside Estates, which is in Golden. They're a pretty large mobile home park, and they were recently put up for sale by their corporate landlord for an outrageous price of over 15 million, which is not market price. And they're figuring it out right now. They recently filed a lawsuit to try to delay the sale, which succeeded. And so now they are, they're refocusing, reorganizing, and this delay has allowed them to refocus. But with this law, if this law passes, it's going to help protect them even more, and it's actually going to stop the sort of jump scare, like, oh my God, we have to do this, right? Like, there's actually going to be due process this time around in their favor. So we're really excited about that.
And it's certainly no surprise after the last year or two that immigration would be very high on the list of priorities for Together Colorado. Tell me a little bit about, I think it's Senate Bill 005. It's about rights violations in immigration enforcement. What would this allow people to do?
The bill would allow people to sue if their constitutional rights are violated during enforcement. And this applies to anyone involved. So even if they're not a government official. And if someone's actions directly cause the violation, they can be held legally responsible. The bill, and this is the exciting part of this, sets aside about 125,600 for the state's Department of Law to implement this. And the person harmed can seek compensation or other relief in court. And so this is the first time that we've actually seen, this sort of accountability at the statewide level for federal agencies. And this would be a big game changer if it passes, and we think it will. We have two of our folks who are actually testifying at the House Judiciary Committee in support of this, which is going to be one of the strongest laws in the country as well if it passes. So
yeah, I would think this would be one of the first to say you can't just do anything you want to do. There are rules. There's a constitution. You can't violate the Constitution.
And, I will say that Colorado has been at the forefront of passing some of the most powerful immigration laws in recent years. And this is part of that. And, just trying to set an example for the rest of the country about what this can look like at the legal level. And also, we've been organizing incredibly hard on the ground to build networks between congregations and community groups and regular people who want to provide mutual aid, direct services, but also just to hold, elected officials to account and build relationships with them so that, we are protecting our immigrant communities as well. And holding them to task really seriously if necessary.
What's the opposition like to this bill? I would think it would be strong as well.
It's been interesting. I don't know if I've heard of any opposition to this bill. I mean, I could be very wrong, but every time we've talked about it as a staff so far, it's passed, without any sort of major opposition at every level. So that just goes to show that I think our state legislature is really serious on the whole about protecting all of our communities and upholding the dignity of people in Colorado. And I'm not saying that there's exceptions. I'm sure there's exceptions to that on the whole. Yeah, we haven't seen it.
For those who don't follow the legislative process, what's the power dynamic between Republicans and Democrats in this session, and how does that contribute to your optimism that these bills are going to pass?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, as we know, the legislature has been blue for a while, right? And Democrats hold a lot of power. And I think right now the dynamic is more between what we call like the moderate Democrats versus, the more progressive wing of the party, which mirrors what's been happening nationally. But I think what's interesting is that, on major issues like immigration, it's everyone's sort of following the same, kind of mantra and singing from the same songbook. But when it comes to things like housing which tends to, be more about economic justice. There's more of a, I don't want to say split, but there's just differing opinions there. And I think that's what we're going to continue to face moving forward when it comes to housing. But, as we organize our communities and organize more impacted people, renters, mobile homeowners, young people, we're hopeful that the dynamic can change.
On the subject of housing, it's not that far in the past that Lakewood voters rejected a rezoning approach that the Lakewood City Council had passed to allow for higher density housing, duplexes, triplexes, and more. They resoundingly rejected this. Thoughts? What the heck comes next?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we're still processing, right? And in Jefferson County, this was sort of the vanguard fight for transformative zoning. And we were so excited last fall when our coalition helped pass these laws, the rezoning at a local level. We had a progressive city council in Lakewood, and young people, seniors, low income people, renters who really came out and supported this. But the issue with the recent election was that, one, it was a special election. It was very low turnout. Yep. And it was, the system was rigged from the get-go. And despite a very valiant campaign, I think ultimately the opposition had captured the narrative very early on when they were gathering petitions, and they had an incredibly visceral message, about bulldozing your neighborhoods. Even
oh my
if it
God,
was
there were at least 6 houses on our street that said there could be 5 homes built on this lot, and the bulldozing thing. So yeah, you're right. They captured the narrative. So I'm assuming that the Lakewood City Council will regroup because there are state imperatives to allow for higher density housing.
Yeah, I mean, the state passed laws recently in order to to make sure that we have more affordable housing moving forward, right? And that includes density. I can't speak for Lakewood City Council and what they're going to be doing moving forward. I think they're still trying to to figure out next steps. But what I can say from the Together Colorado Jeffco perspective is that we've been watching this election very closely and trying to figure out our own sort of lane and just debriefing, okay, as folks who are mainly based in congregations and who, have been homeowners for a while, what's a fight that we can essentially get behind and really mobilize our people around, because rezoning might not be it. Right? Like it might, we support it intellectually and like morally from our values, but what's an issue that we can truly viscerally, feel in our bodies, like, okay, this is what we're going to come out for, because that, quite frankly, that's what the opposition in Lakewood did. They felt that their safety was being violated, their sense of security, wherever that was coming from. And that's why they came out against rezoning. They didn't have as much money as the campaign, but, they held fast to the power of organized people. And that's what we need to do moving forward in Lakewood and Jefferson County. And, there's some possibilities like transportation or, but we just have to figure out what that is before we, commit all of our resources to it.
We've gone a long time, and I just need, before we go, to say, how do people connect with Together Colorado if they haven't been involved yet, but by golly, they're ready to get involved now?
Yeah, thank you. So please feel free to follow us on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. If you just type in Together Colorado, our account should pop up. If you want to join the Jefferson County chapter, which I'm helping lead, you're welcome to email me at Maki, Maki, at togetherco.org to do a one-to-one conversation with me, and then we can introduce you to the rest of the group. We have a really great community that's been building for a while and eager to see more. So yeah, that's how to connect with us.
That's right. Got to keep on the hope train that more and more people will get involved, because that's certainly what it takes. Thank you. Thanks for being with us on the podcast yet again, and good luck with the rest of the legislative session. And we'll talk again.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate y'all.
Of course, there's a lot more to faithfully resisting than meetings and protests and lobbying the legislature. So as we wrap up this episode, I'm going to share this poem I came across the other day. It's called Instructions on Not Giving Up by Ada Limon. More than the fuchsia funnels breaking out of the crabapple tree, more than the neighbor's almost obscene display of cherry limbs shoving their cotton candy-colored blossoms to the slate sky of spring rains, it's the greening of the trees that really gets to me. When all the shock of white and taffy, the world's baubles and trinkets, leave the pavement strewn with the confetti of aftermath, the leaves come, patient, plodding, a green skin growing over whatever winter did to us. A return to the strange idea of continuous living despite the mess of us, the hurt, the empty. Fine then, I'll take it, the tree seems to say, a new slick leaf unfurling like a fist to an open palm. I'll take it all. You'll find several ideas for resistance work on the Faithful Resistance page of our website, jeffersonunitarian.org. Open your heart to the work and keep on doing the next right thing. Go out, do the next right thing.